Okay, I think we can probably get going now. Thank you everybody for joining us this morning for the next in the series of Tide webinars. This one, conversation about race for small business owners, obviously a very important topic for us to cover, and we've got a fantastic panel who've joined us from a variety of areas who all have really interesting and important points to make over the next hour or so. We're going to start in the next few minutes. We're going to doing a quick introduction about Tide, and we've got a couple of polls to run, and I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll get on with the presentation. We will have a Q&A section at the end, so please do use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom window there to put your questions in, and we'll get to those towards the end. This is due to last until 12 o'clock, but if there are lots of questions to be answered, we have the option to go longer, and any questions that we don't manage to answer, we'll get to those offline and come back to you with answers as we can. So I just wanted to give you a quick insight as about Tide. I know we have a lot of our members on the call, but there are obviously a lot of people maybe who don't know what we do here at Tide. So first of all, my name's Kuhn Hawker. I'm the event manager here. And just to let you know a bit about what Tide do, we are a business current account designed to save SMEs and freelancers time and money with their banking. We've now got over 200,000 customers in the UK, which is great, and we're the fastest growing business current account in the UK as well. We're great for startups, small businesses and freelancers, as there's no monthly fee, no annual fee either, and there's no minimum deposit or credit checks. So you can even try us out alongside your current business account to see a direct comparison for cost and time saving, all those things as well. Usually takes about 5 or 10 minutes to sign up and get your account and sort code. When I signed up about 2 or 3 months ago, it took 4 minutes and 37 seconds, which was a great little test to be able to do. You then get your card in the post, and you can start banking as soon as you've got your sort code and account number as well. The app itself is packed full of time-saving features, such as auto-categorization of your spending, so you can see exactly where your money's gone and when it went there. We recently also launched a brand new invoicing feature, so you can have professional invoice templates which include your logo. You can create those really quickly and easily. You can edit the email that sends the invoice to your customer as well. And we have a new partner in Hakodo, which has allowed an invoice protection, which means you can insure invoices against non-payment, which is a really nice feature. You also can have up to 30 cards on the one account. So you can have cards for co-directors, senior leadership, members of staff to all make company expenses. And these are free to order. And like I said, you can have up to 30 on the one account. And within the account itself, you can also have 4 sub-accounts, which means you can split it into, you can have one for tax, one for marketing, one for events, all that kind of stuff. So it really is a really useful tool for SME and freelancer banking. I will come back a bit later as well to talk you through how we can get you to become a Tide member really easily, and we'll talk about that a bit later on after the session. But for now, like I said, we're going to get the panelists to introduce themselves. We've got a really strong panel. I'm really appreciative of them all to give their time this morning. I know they're all really busy, but this is a really important subject which we obviously wanted to cover. So if we could start with Andi Jarvis to introduce himself, please. Morning, Andi.
Morning, Kieran. Thank you for that. My name is Andi Jarvis. I am the Strategy Director at Eximo Marketing. I founded the firm, and it's a strategic marketing consultant in Liverpool, where I am today, and Belfast, where I spend half my life. I help medium-sized companies really with strategic marketing challenges. So that's not the doing, the writing of posts and things like that. It's more the understanding customers and why people are going to buy products from you. So that's my business. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Andy. And Deborah, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Hi. So yes, my name is Debora Tonet. I'm the founder of Black Girls in Fashion, which is a new digital media platform that is revolutionizing the way Black women learn and study within the fashion industry through online and offline experiences and content. We touch on the subjects that matter most to Black women within the industry.
Great, thanks, Deborah. And Sinmi, good morning.
Thank you for having me. I'm Sinmi. I'm the founder of Vera Society, which is an online community for female founders. We support these women starting and growing their businesses, and we're super passionate about female enterprise and want more women to start businesses and make money.
Great, thanks, Sinmi. And Emelia, morning.
Hi, my name's Amelia Quest. I'm a Senior Policy Advisor at the Federation of Small Businesses. The Federation of Small Businesses, if you don't know it, the FSB is a membership organisation for the self-employed and those who own small businesses. And we're across the UK, so we're in all regions and nations of the UK.
Great, thanks, Amelia. And before we get started on the presentations and questions, I just wanted to run a couple of polls. So the first one just gives us an idea of the people that we're talking to in terms of the size of businesses you work in or run. If you guys could take just a second just to answer this poll, which is now on your screen, that would be fantastic, please. I'll give people a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds to have a look at that. 83%, can we get to 100%? Hasn't happened yet. 2 more seconds. We're at 90%, so let's do that. I will show everybody the results. So as you can see there, 64% of those answered are in a company of 1 to 5 people. So that gives an idea of the size of people size of the companies we're talking at. And then just the next poll is just about obviously the issues that we're going to be talking about today, and have you experienced racism in any form at work, whether it was to you directly or to a member of staff, or indeed a customer or anything. That'd be interesting for us to know, please. 74%. Any more? Okay, we're 86% there. I will share the results there. And we see, yeah, unfortunately, there's obviously a slightly higher percentage of people who say yes, they have. So this is something which is why it's really important that we're having this conversation today. So we're going to move on now to talk to Emelia first. And Emelia, you've been doing some really interesting research around ethnic minority entrepreneurship with the FSB. And so it'd be great if you could first of all give us an introduction into the FSB, and then please tell us about the work that you've been doing and why this study has been commissioned. That'd be great.
Will do. So I think on the first slide, we're showing a bit of information about the FSB. So the FSB has been around for quite a few years, since 1974. It's a membership organisation, so we represent the needs of the self-employed and small businesses. As I said earlier, we're across the whole of the UK. So we're in all areas from Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and England, and in all regions of the UK as well. So our members, if they employ people, on average they employ around 7 people, and we represent all of their interests. So if it's from tax, finance, employment, trade, we cover a whole host of issues, and we're essentially a voice for our members to people in government. So we represent their needs, we speak to officials, we speak to politicians, and campaign on the interests of small businesses. And so most recently, we have been looking at ethnic minorities and ethnic minority-led businesses. So on this next slide, you'll see that small businesses in themselves, they're found across the whole of the UK. There's 5.6 million small businesses, and very much so that ethnic minority-led businesses tend to be within the small business community. Just from that previous poll that we saw as more likely to be a micro business, and that's definitely found within small businesses as well. So over the last few years, kind of the recent research from 2017 showed that ethnic minority-led businesses, their provision that they make to the economy is between 25 to 32 billion a year. So that's a lot of money that ethnic minority-led businesses are contributing to the UK economy. It's something that FSB definitely wants government to recognise, to harness that potential, and to look at some of the challenges elsewhere. Last year, I published a report on small businesses in the community, looking at how small businesses are connected to their communities, what they do in terms of providing employment, for fostering entrepreneurial activity, or helping younger people within their communities. And very much so with ethnic minority-led businesses, communities are integral. So whether that's you're creating a business that's dedicated to an aspect of your community is supporting the growth of your business. So yeah, definitely community is something that's central to small businesses and very much central to ethnic minority-led small businesses. So as Human mentioned, that FSB's done a lot of work in this area. and we're looking at doing more work in this area. So from the report that we've previously done, we found that small businesses who employ ethnic minorities tend to be more innovative, and innovation is key right now, especially to businesses. So we're very much aware of having that diversity within a business is central. However, there still are a number of challenges that remain for ethnic minority-led businesses. So issues such as access to finance, supply chains, growing your business support and networking are some issues that small businesses that have an ethnic minority-led person within them are still struggling with. We've seen some of these issues come to the fore with coronavirus, but they're still there. They're still very prevalent within, although businesses and government have done a lot over the last few months. Some of these issues remain. So on the final slide, you can see some of the kind of the people that are within FSB, but also one of the key things that we've done last year is we've partnered up with CREM, which is a Centre for Research for Ethnic Minority Entrepreneurship, and we're soon to be publishing a report looking more closely at some of these issues, and essentially not only giving rise or speaking about some of the challenges, but actually talking about the potential of these businesses. So looking at issues such as innovation, trade, women-led businesses that are led by ethnic minority women, business support. So some of these areas that have been discussed quite a bit in the past, such as access to finance, but other areas such as innovation and trade maybe haven't done so much. Self-employment is a route for many people, but also for those who come from more diverse backgrounds. Being within as an employee can sometimes be a struggle. There are people who want to kind of go out alone and forge their own careers, which is fantastic, but there are a number of obstacles that often businesses face. So we want to kind of highlight those issues and those challenges to people within government, but also highlight the actual growth and potential and a lot of the work that ethnic minority-led businesses are giving back to the economy. A number of those things are hidden within our communities. And I think if government is aware, if society is aware of what's happening with ethnic minority-led businesses, they're very much aware of what's happening with small businesses as a whole. So that's fantastic, and that's something that we're working on at FSB. So if you're interested in this topic and this issue in our research that we're doing and we're about to launch, do keep an eye out on our webpage and our comms materials, and you'll definitely hear more about it in the coming weeks.
That's really interesting. Thanks, Amelia. I think it's really great to know the FSB are doing this kind of research and producing these kind of reports. And just so everybody is on the meeting is aware, the post-event we'll be sending an email out with all the links that are discussed during this webinar. There'll be a link to the FSB website and a link to a report that we have access to from the FSB as well. And Deb, the report that you're doing on ethnic minority entrepreneurship is due to come out in a couple of weeks. Is that right?
Yes, hopefully by the end of the month it should be.
Okay. And that'll be just on the website as well?
Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, it's a great resource and a really good place to sort of check in every now and again and see what's going on. I don't know if any of the panelists had wanted to have a talk on this subject at all. Andi, did you have something you wanted to say about this?
No, I'm going to talk a little bit about the FSB in a moment and how helpful organisations like that can be. But I think it's really important that the research is there. Because that's the starting point for everything, is having the data to understand what needs to change and how far it needs to change. Yeah,
it's a great resource. So it's a really important work that you're doing, Amelia. So thank you. So moving on to talking to Sinmi now of the Vera Society. When we started our discussions leading up to this webinar, you spoke to me about something I had no idea existed and was shocking, to be honest with you, that a lot of Black people in the beauty industry do not include images of their own hands or face in their marketing, as they feel it's something that has a negative effect on their business, it just blew my mind. And I think even with Andi, when we were discussing it, was something which totally shocked you as well. So it'd be great if you could give us some more information on this and also share your views on profit versus ethics, and brand partners and all the other and any other things which you think are important within this subject.
Okay, so when we first spoke about it, Kieran was quite shocked to hear something that's so normal and spoken about in our industry. I've done a lot of research, mainly on prowess which shares a lot of information about female entrepreneurship. And some of the stats were really shocking. So I run a poll on my Instagram and within the community, and 63% of the girls who answered said that they feel like they have to hide their race in order to gain business. And it's shocking, it's sad, and it really kind of put a lot of things into perspective. So I've done more research, like I said, and Black women feel like ethnicity has a strong impact on business, and that's 80% of women that they researched. And for me, it's like confidence and the ability to be yourself should be something that's afforded for everybody. It shouldn't be for a select few. And it's sad that as Black business owners, as Black women in business, we're not able to feel comfortable showing ourselves, and we really should. Because confidence is one of the main barriers that female founders face when starting a business. And if you can't confidently show up as yourself, then it raises a lot of questions in your confidence in other areas as well. So even there was a study with over 300 Black and ethnic minority women that found people prefer the leadership style of white women versus ethnic minority women. So again, it's about being able to represent yourself in the best way. If you feel like your leadership style or the way you handle things, your decision making is not going to be preferred or received well by people, how can you run your business authentically? And it raises a lot of question marks and fears amongst these women who feel like they can't show up as themselves, or they can't include their hands in pictures and things like that, which is shocking. After I run the poll, I got so many DMs from people just feel like they aren't represented by the mainstream beauty brands and by the media as well, because they mainly post white or fair-skinned women, which is obviously an issue with colorism. And when you look at the brands you admire, the companies that you aspire to be like, and you don't see anyone who looks like you don't see Black people even being mentioned, it makes you feel quite uncomfortable. And that's why when people start their own brands, they think, do you know what, maybe Black isn't good enough, and I'm, as a Black person, can't even show myself. So I think the mainstream brands, mainstream media, we need to see Black women portrayed in a more positive light, and just see more Black women everywhere, because we do exist and we do deserve the spotlight as well, especially within the beauty industry, because a lot of the brands post user-generated content, so they're showing the work of other artists and makeup artists, nail techs, lash artists and things like that, and you never see any work from Black artists. So I think it's really important that if any brands out there are even listening, or if you run a brand yourself, to be inclusive of everyone and make sure you're showing a spectrum of people and not just one side of the spectrum. Like I said about only posting white and fair-skinned people, we need to see brown-skinned girls, Black girls, the darkest of the dark girls. We need to see everyone, so everyone feels included in social media, and as well as being able to represent yourself as a business owner. It's a really touchy subject, and like I said, my DMs were full of quite emotional responses from people, because it is quite sad that people feel like they have to hide their race. And another thing I noticed, that it wasn't even just Black people who were responding yes. I even had some white and Asian people who said that they feel like they have to hide their race as well. So it kind of comes into the whole profit versus ethics, because there are even some Black business owners who refuse to post Black people because they feel like the demographic of Black people in the UK is too small to cater to, when we are still a part of the world, we're part of the population, and we deserve to be represented. So yeah, I think it raises a lot of questions about how can you kind of authentically run your business if you choose to hide yourself, or choose to hide or minimize others just like you.
Thanks, Sinmi. I think, yeah, you raised some really, worrying statistics and really interesting discussion points. I think, knowing these, like I said, for me, it was something that I had not even considered, which is bad on my point, but it's something which obviously I'm now aware of, and hopefully, doing events like this will get people to be more aware of it, and hopefully start to get that percentage there in front of us down. So I wanted to move on to Andi now. Andi, during our discussion leading up to the webinar, it became clear that I think your feelings were that as an SME, there are actions that need to be taken in order to flag race issues, and also there is a responsibility within whatever your community is as an SME to take action. It'd be great if you could maybe expand on those points, please.
Yeah, and just to follow on from what Sinmi was saying,
Sure, yeah.
I was completely blown away that is an issue in the beauty industry. Although we talked when we were planning about this as well about something that I think a lot of Black people have experienced. I mean, Andrew Jarvis is my birth name, and I know I go places sometimes, and especially when you've spoken to people over the phone, and you arrive in reception, and people are like, "Oh, Andrew Jarvis? Oh, you're Andrew Jarvis, right?" And that sort of, it's a kind of a different part of the same line of just being not assumed to be something you are but because of the colour of your skin. And those little things, when you start talking to other Black people about it, you think it only happens to you. And it's only as you start to collect the data, you realise that actually this is lots of people this is happening to. And the DMs that Sinmi was getting sort of speak to that as well. So I think what you can see on screen there, that very ugly diagram, is a process diagram I use at work. I'm in marketing, so I tend to view everything through a marketing lens. So data, strategy, implementation. And in a marketing world, most people tend to just jump straight into implementation. Not just small companies, most companies. But have a look at the data, create a strategy, and then implement. But those 3 steps work when you're looking at lots of different issues as well. Understand the problem, create a solution, and then start implementing it. And I think that's what I sort of keep coming back to today. When the Black Lives Matter movement started to accelerate coming after George Floyd's murder, I felt a little bit helpless. And I was talking to an American friend of mine who's in the industry as well. And he just said, use your platform, do what you can. Because I felt like there was nothing I could do to solve the issue of George Floyd being murdered. But that advice of use your platform and do what you can really inspired me. And I think that is something that kind of hits that first tick of being authentic. I decided there and then that I can't change the whole world, but I run a small business. I'm in the business community. What can the business community do? So the thing for me was that felt authentic. And I would say for you as a small business, how do you keep that authentic for you as well? So you look at things like mission, vision, and values. Now, I know in a lot of the poll at the beginning showed we've got a lot of micro business owners, and sometimes those things aren't captured formally. You don't have a document that says mission statement at the top, and it's a nice statement, and then the vision for the organization and the values. But you know them intuitively. They're all in there, so you know what you're doing. And make sure that whatever actions you take are authentic to your business. I spoke to a lady called Isha Edwards, who's from Atlanta. I ran it was a 90-minute sort of live podcast with 5 guests, 4 of them from America, all in marketing, all talking about Black Lives Matter. And Isha came up with this statement, which I thought was fantastic, which is you have to Rubik's Cube your organization. So you're all familiar with a Rubik's Cube. When you spin it around, it doesn't line up and it looks a mess. And she was saying you have to solve that Rubik's Cube first and get all the colors lining up. And that's when you can start to be authentic. So do what actions feel authentic to you. Some companies were saying, and some companies I've worked with reached out to me and said, should we be posting a black tile on social media to show our commitment to being anti-racist? And what I would say is, I didn't force any company to do that. I'm not saying, yes, you should, you've got to get on this and you've got to do it. I said, is it authentic to your organization? Some companies who didn't post black tiles do more for the Black community and do more to be anti-racist than some of the companies who did. And I think that's the key to being authentic, is doing the actions that are right for you. And just on that, when you see, I think one of the things we can hopefully talk about today, and hopefully you'll take from today, is actions for small businesses. We saw a lot of press when Nike, Ben & Jerry's and people were wading into Black Lives Matter, posting black tiles and talking about diversity and inclusion and promoting Black culture. But not many organizations look like Ben & Jerry's. You know, they're owned by Unilever, some of the biggest companies in the world. Nike are huge as well. So it's about understanding what steps you can take. So one practical step I would say is to educate yourself and your team. If you don't have the ability to tap into diversity training and things like that, like bigger organizations can do, ask questions, reach out and talk to people. I'm happy to talk to people. I've been taking phone calls, text messages, emails, and please, my details are out there. Please do get in touch if you have any questions. One thing I would say is that you hear this phrase, the Black community. And often as people, we think the Black community and just think it's one homogenous lump, just this group of people who all think and feel the same. And it isn't. There are many different people. I know Black people who disagree fundamentally with some of the views I have and think I should be going a lot further and be a lot more aggressive with them. And I know people who think that I'm just far too far and we should just be, quietly letting things go. Different people have different views. And talk to lots of people if you can. And don't be upset if some people don't want to talk to you. Not every Black person wants to spend their time educating you, but be respectful and try and understand. Read wider, read different people and see what you can bring into that. But I would say as well, Amelia's here from the FSB. There's also organizations like the Institute of Directors, your local Chamber of Commerce or business organizations. Tap into those. They often put on sessions such as for diversity training or awareness that you can get into for probably quite a low price point as well, or maybe as part of your membership. And the next thing I would say is understand that you have bias. So to bring it back to marketing, because that's what I do, where marketing and psychology meet is in that sort of consumer buying behavior. Why do people do the things they do? Or how can we use that to help them buy more or buy our product? So I spend a lot of time looking at that. And actually what you see in consumer buying behavior is bias it kind of comes out of a mental model that our brain uses to be able to shortcut things. So we see so many different signs, so many different things happen all the time, every day. If you think of driving to work, all the different things that you're exposed to, your brain doesn't process them all equally. And we use biases and shortcuts to be able to understand those things so we can just get through the day without our brains melting down. So biases can be useful and can be helpful. But you have to understand, firstly, that you have them, and you have to understand where they're not helpful. And certainly when you come to racial and your bias against Black people, then that can be where it becomes a problem. So I've heard and seen a lot of people say recently over the last few weeks and months that, well, I don't see Black, I just see people. And that sentiment, I think, comes from a really, really lovely place. It's, there's nothing to be gained by shouting at people saying you're wrong about that, because you've got to understand that what they mean is really well-meaning. Unfortunately, I think it's misguided because it's trying to suggest that you don't have bias when we all do. I've got bias, everyone on the panel has bias, you have bias. And you have to understand that you have that to be able to create systems and processes to stop that becoming an issue for you. And that's where I think that sort of feeds into the next one, that plan ahead of time, and back to the process diagram as well, is that create a strategy, create a plan, so you know what your bias is and how you are going to avoid that impacting your business. So because we all have those biases, and then you can understand what steps can I take if I'm going to recruit people, even little things like where you advertise for jobs. If you're recruiting a staff member or seasonal staff, where you advertise for jobs could bias the sort of people that you get applying for that. Are you looking at CVs with names on them? Because studies after study after study after study from I think the 50s through to fairly recently show that if people with exactly the same CV just change the name to one that sounds sort of white British and one that sounds foreign, effectively, those CVs go out, the person with the white British name gets called for interview significantly more than the person with the ethnic sounding name. So you might not think you have bias. You might say, well, I don't see colour. But unfortunately, you probably do, or other people in your organisation do. And by shutting down the discussion because you don't believe you have bias, you're actually contributing to the problem getting worse. So I think it comes from a good place, that statement, but I would say please be aware of it and understand that what you're doing could be causing further problems. So look at what practical steps you can take before you need them. I know from running a small business, you wear a lot of hats, you're juggling a lot of issues, you're sorting a lot of things out. You're often working really long hours as well. And when you need something solving, when you need to recruit or when you've got an issue, that's not the time. You need to plan. You need to build the ark before it starts raining. So they're the few things I would say. Make sure it's authentic to your organization. That doesn't mean you have to do what everybody else is doing. It means do what feels right for your organization. Educate yourself. You're already at this webinar, which is a great starting point. Read widely, talk to other people, bringing different viewpoints, and use that to help change and impact what you're doing. Understand that you have bias. We all do. It's not a criticism. Everybody has bias. Sometimes they can help us, sometimes they can hinder us, and understand when that's an issue, and then put a plan together. And plans don't have to be 68 pages of documents that get thrown in the drawer and never seen again. 4 bullet points on a wall, or a discussion over a pot of tea that says, right, okay, this is what we'll do when we start to recruit. Intuitive planning can be useful as well. That's me for the minute. Thank you.
Great, Andy. Thank you so much. I mean, it's really, really insightful stuff. I think for me, the understand your bias is something which I maybe hadn't considered as a main point, and I think it's been really important that people understand that you have bias, and you just need to be able to figure out how to manage that and to work with it. You mentioned you had a live podcast. I think we have the link to that, and we will include that in the email as well. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah. We'll send that around. So one guest from Belfast, 4 from different parts of the States, just discussing the protests and what that's led to, and then what role marketing and marketers can play in making changes for the future.
Great. Thank you for making that available to us, and I'm sure lots of people will have a look at that once they get the link. So thank you. Moving on to Debora now. You have extensive knowledge and background in the fashion industry, Debora, and it'd be really interesting to learn about your unfortunate experiences with race issues, and also any ideas you have for moving forward and combating those around toolkits or working with brands. That'd be really interesting for us. Yeah, you're on mute, I think.
Sorry, yes. So I think I've been working in the fashion industry for next year will be 10 years. And I've worked at various different brands, like higher and lower as well. And my experience has been a varied one. I still am very positive about my experience, my career so far. I decided to launch Black Girls in Fashion because I actually didn't see, I was gearing up for Fashion Week. And I was looking for inspiration in terms of what to wear, but I wanted to see that inspiration on women that looked like me. So I was doing my research, and as I was looking, I actually only ever saw the same 4 or 5 fashion editors who were Black females, captured on Pinterest or on Google. The media just never picks up on the women that women of color, Black women, brown women who actually attend Fashion Week and what their roles are. So I like to say, you can't be what you can't see. So I decided that I think a week before Fashion Week that I was going to set up this platform. And I was surprised to know that nobody had ever thought of actually setting something up like this, creating a platform that could highlight and celebrate Black women within the creative industry. So I set upon creating the team myself. We had a photographer, 2 social media editors, and myself. And we took to London Fashion Week. The amount of women that were there was absolutely phenomenal. We met creative directors, art directors. We met women who had launched their own modeling agencies, who were doing production for London Fashion Week. It was amazing, and it was sad that there was nowhere for us to see these women and what they were doing and how they were positively contributing to the British fashion industry. I like to say as well, just to piggyback off the point of one of our guest panelists that said that Black women who own businesses and run businesses tend to not want to put themselves forward, be the face of. And that was my experience at the beginning, especially for London Fashion Week. I had to request my tickets for shows, for events, for parties. And when I launched Black Girls in Fashion, I didn't do it under Black Girls in Fashion because I was afraid of the reaction that whoever would be issuing my tickets or my place would think, what is this? I was afraid that the industry wasn't ready for what we were creating, and for the fact that we were putting Black women at the forefront of our business and our platform. So I would put it under my other platform, which is WRT Interns. We run this Interns, which is a platform that helps young creatives navigate fashion through the internship route. So that was more of a safe option for me. So that's something that I did in terms of hiding who I was and what we were kind of standing for at the beginning. That's not something that I do now, absolutely not. I am very proud of my community, and the women who are continuously helping me build and grow. And also, just to piggyback off what Amelia said, my community is the core of my business. I cannot do anything without them. They provide me the feedback that I need to better the business, to better the platform. They provide me with the issues and topics that matter most to them, that are harder hitting for them. We've recently also just launched a podcast called The Fashion Spill, where we talk about the harder hitting topics. We talk about the dismantling the racist educational system. We talk about, the next week, Monday, I'm going to have a speaker on who was the visual merchandiser for the whole of the Europe section at Anthropology. And Anthropology has recently been called out for how they've treated Black people, their Black customers, and Black employees as well. They've been called out for that. So she's going to be coming on board to talk about her experience through that. So my community is the core of what I do. In addition, I do want to give an example of a young lady who I actually met at London Fashion Week, who had her own, she was 22 years old at the time. We'd stopped her to interview. So we create a lot of visual collateral. We do interviews, videos, we create content that our community can consume. And also we provide connections to these women who we've met and continue to meet with. So we connect them with our young creatives who want to get into the fashion industry or want to excel within the industry. So I met this young lady at Fashion Week, and we'd stopped her to interview her. And I just asked her, like, what brings you here? Like, why are you here? And she said, oh, I came to watch my girls walk. And we were like, myself and the team were like, what do you mean, watch your girls walk? And she said, I own my own modeling agency. And for the first time, London Fashion Week has hired me and to provide models to run the runway. And I was like so impressed at how young this lady was and how tenacious she was. She just set up her business. She took it upon herself to not allow her experiences to stop her aiming higher. Like, London Fashion Week is a big deal. It's a big deal for a lot of us who are working in the British fashion industry. And so for me, I was very, very proud of her. And that was a moment where I was like, okay, I can genuinely create a business around my community by providing them connections with their professional counterparts and give them the information that they need to properly advance. And my tagline is, we are reclaiming excellence for Black women who are powered by fashion. For a long time, fashion has not allowed Black women to properly shine in the way that we should. And I just want to share some positive data on representation and diversity as it pertains to the runway. So in 2018 was the start of the conversation about representation and diversity within the fashion industry. 2019 was the year of that implementation. And we saw a rise of 38.8% of non-white models being hired for shows. So in New York, they had a rise of 45.8% of models being women of color. In London, there was a 35% of models who were non-white. And in Paris, there was 39%, which was an increase of 6%. In Milan, there was 31.8% of non-white models as well. So we can see that in certain aspects of the industry, they are implementing, wanting to see, allowing ourselves to be more visible, but there also is a lot of work that needs to be done. So I want to move on into some of the challenges that we actually are facing within the fashion industry. There is work that is being done, but we need to do more. So out of the top 10 fashion publications, only 2 of them actually only 2 of those large fashion publications, editors-in-chief are actually Black. So the leaders of the publications, out of the 10, only 2 of them are Black. And those are Edward Enninful for British Vogue and Lindsay Wagner for Teen Vogue, who actually succeeded Elaine Welteroth. I can never say her name. So we can see that there's still so much work that needs to be done. And we can also see that even there's been an increase in interest in British Vogue, especially since Edward's appointment. You know, his inaugural September issue with Adwoa Aboa absolutely sold out. It was one of the best-selling covers of British Vogue's history. They also have they've managed to diversify their team. So the issues within fashion is not just the front-facing, it's also those who work in the background, those who are doing marketing, those who are running the social medias, those who are looking after the editorials. It's about how do we allow ourselves, our voices, to be in the background of fashion as well as in the forefront. So they are a good example of how they're doing this, how they're doing diversity very, very well in comparison to their American counterpart, who are slightly struggling in terms of representation and diversity. There was a recent article on Anna Wintour, editor-in-chief of American Vogue, who said that the reason as to why there was like a lack of diversity within their publication, within their teams, was because they never had the opportunity to put Black people forward, which is absolute rubbish, because we know that there are so many talented photographers, designers, stylists, assistants, like VMs, like you name it, there are so many. So they did have more ample opportunity to put these people forward. In a recent, as an example, last year, Beyonce had a cover of American Vogue, and within that contract that she signed with them, she actually stated that she would be the one to pick the photographer. So the photographer that they picked, I think I might have forgotten his surname, but it's Tyler Mitchell, I think. He was 22 at the time, young 22-year-old Black photographer. It was his first major gig, and he was put forward for that job. And actually, after the article and after that cover came out, people began to understand that actually he was already a talented photographer even prior to that massive opportunity that was given to him. And from there on, his creative career like catapulted, because it wasn't just a one-hit wonder. He actually was genuinely talented. He just never had the visibility or the ability to put himself forward for other opportunities.
I'm so sorry. I don't want to cut you off too soon, but I'm just a bit aware of the time, and you don't want to.
Absolutely.
I don't want to reach into people's lunch hour and stuff like that. But I just had one point I wanted to make, or question I wanted to ask you from what you were saying earlier. You said initially, and something that Sinmi touched on as well, that when you were applying for tickets for London Fashion Week in the early days, you didn't use the Black Girls in Fashion email address and that, but obviously now you feel free and happy to do that. What was the change? What was the switch something that changed for you or the business or the industry, which meant you were then happy to do that?
So for me, the change was that I was getting the support from the community. The community kept saying to me, you have to put yourself forward. They have to see that don't be afraid to put yourself forward. They have to see that a Black woman came up with this idea, and it's a Black woman that is driving this initiative to better our visibility within the industry.
Perfect. Ooh.
They truly had my back, and not just that, but also for myself, I just want to give this quick example. Even when I would reach out to businesses about Black Girls in Fashion and partnerships, many of them would kind of want me to validate myself, validate why I was in this position to do what I was doing, and kind of like, oh, well, what's your experience? Okay, this is brilliant that you've set up Black Girls in Fashion, but did you work in the fashion industry? Are you a stylist? It's like that. I'd always constantly have to validate who I am and what I'm doing, as like almost like to say, like, am I qualified enough to be doing what I'm doing? So even with that as well, that really gave me the driving force. And not just that, but obviously we teamed up with you guys, Tide Banking, for our launch event in September 2019, which was massively successful. It was sold out. I just couldn't take any more attendees. We sold 400 free tickets, and we had 270 people in attendance. So even just that told me that there was a need. The community wanted this, and it was something that they were willing to support me so that we can provide for the greater community. We are launching, we're working within London, but we want to take over the major fashion capitals of the world. So New York, Milan, Paris, we want to then go over to Seoul, Hong Kong. So we're working hard to make sure that Black women feel comfortable, they are seen, and that they can excel and celebrate their positive impact within the fashion industry.
That's great. Thanks, Deborah. Really inspiring stuff. And sorry, I had to cut you off, but I just
No,
want
it's
to
okay.
get to the questions. And if anybody out there wants to get in touch with Deborah, please do get in touch with me and from the email address on the Zoom invite, and I can forward on any requests to Deborah and for the whole panel as well. So I just want to move on to the next slide, where we're going to just have some hints, tips, maximum knowledge, and resources from the panel. Andy, I think the first two there were ones that you wanted to mention to the attendees.
Yeah, and I think I've kind of touched on them already anyway, but that bit about widening your circle. Social media, you hear maybe people talk about the bubble effect, or filter bubble, where you effectively follow people on social media, and the algorithms that power social media then push people's content who you engage with more to the top. So in effect, the more you like, reply, share somebody else's posts, the more you'll see them. What that creates is just this self-fulfilling prophecy of you just hear the same things from the same people over and over and over again. And you have to really then push out to go to find out new and different opinions. I mean, one big example of that for me was if I looked at my social media in the run up to Brexit, it was fairly easy. It was going to be an 80% plus we're staying in the European Union vote. So it was a bit of a shock when I woke up the next morning to find out that we were leaving the European Union. And that's because I was in a filter bubble. So you've really got to fight to get out of that and widen the number of people's opinions. You're reading podcasts, you're listening to, that type of thing. Don't just stay on the same thing. So really force yourself to listen and find out information from elsewhere. And that second bit about accessing formal training on bias, if you can. And I would, again, say if you can tap into FSB, Institute of Directors, local chambers of commerce, business networks, whatever that is, if they're offering it, go ahead and do it, because it is eye-opening when you start looking at this through a different prism. I did some bias training probably 10 years ago now and was just genuinely astounded and blown away. So please do try and access that if you can.
Great, thanks, Andy. And I think this quote came from Sinmi. I think it's me you wanted to talk to from Michelle.
Yes, this is from Michelle Obama's Becoming documentary on Netflix. And when she said it, I wrote it down immediately because one of the girls asked her, well, she said to her, I feel like I'm invisible. I feel like everything I do is going unnoticed. Like, what should I do? And Michelle just turned to her and said, like, we cannot afford to wait for the world to be equal to start being seen. We have to be bold and do the inner work. And it's so important, especially as a Black person, in terms of what I was saying about feeling the need to hide yourself. We can't wait for things to change. We have to take it upon ourselves to make the change and just start showing up, being bolder, doing things you've never done before, putting yourself in new positions and just opening yourself up to more.
I think that's really important. Yeah, really, really important things to be doing. Amelia, yeah, we spoke briefly about the FSB website earlier, and like I said, we'll send the link around to everybody post this event. But I just wondered if you had any more sort of insight on what people could find on the FSB website that may be helpful for them.
Yeah, of course. So the FSB website has a whole host of information, so various resources, where it be kind of skills hub, knowing about our previous research that we've done in different areas. We've got all of our publications on there, any comms material that you want to access, and also what's quite important at the moment, we've got a coronavirus hub, which highlights all of the government support initiatives that have come out at the moment, any messaging and support that you need. And if you want to find out more about becoming an FSB member, you can look at the FSB website as well.
Awesome, thank you so much. Yeah, really, really helpful stuff on that website. So yeah, do please visit when we send the link around. And Deborah, these last two, were you just reminded to the attendees we're going to do a Q&A session in a couple of minutes, so do get your questions in to the Q&A button at the bottom. Deborah, yeah, just these final 2 points from you. You're on mute. I can maybe unmute you.
Okay, sorry. Yes, hi. Yeah, no, I'm just going to briefly, so like in terms of like for businesses who want to bring on young creatives or Black creatives, you know, be open-minded in your hiring process, or whoever's in charge of diversity within the team, be open-minded, have an open perspective of different experience and skill set beyond the linear expectation, and recognizing your biases. You know, retention is important. How are you enabling Black employees to stay within the business and help you grow your business, treating them like you would treat your white counterparts, being mindful of your comments, and when you're around colleagues outside of your race, be mindful of the comments that when you're around colleagues outside of your race, so that you're not mentioning like discriminatory things. Being accountable and holding yourself accountable for your actions, and being quick to act in accordance with your company policies. You know, building a company structure and work environment where employees feel safe to voice any concerns and grievances. Also allowing personal and professional development, providing the equal access through training, coaching, or mentoring and guidance. These are like obviously just small tips, but ultimately they're small things that you could start doing to implement a better and healthy working culture within your business.
Great, thanks, Deborah. Thanks so much. So yeah, if we could just move on to the next slide. I just want to give you a bit more information about Tide and what we do, and then we'll get on to the Q&A section. So do please get your questions in. I know we've got a couple there. So just to reiterate what I said earlier, the start of the event, anybody that's not a Tide member who's joined us today, it's really great to have you on board, and we'd love to have you as a Tide member and to join the now over 200,000 customers that we have. So you can start saving time and money with your banking. On Tuesday next week, you will receive an email from us where we'll give you some more information about what we do and how we can help your business. All you need to do is click on the link within the email, download the really easy to use app, as I mentioned earlier, lots of really useful time-saving things to help with your banking. Complete the application. As mentioned, shouldn't take no longer than 10 minutes. It won't cost you any money, and so you can try us out risk-free. So look out for that email on Tuesday. Sign up, become a member, feedback to us as well if there's any things in the app that don't work for you, or there's any kind of things which would help with your banking. Please do get in touch with us. We listen to our customers and do put new things within the app as soon as we can when we have some feedback from our customers. So yeah, do please get in touch. So we're going to now move on to the Q&A section. I have a question that came in from Ali Chandler. This is for you, Sinmi. You spoke earlier about not being able to be your authentic self in the fashion industry. I wanted to ask whether this had any effect on you choosing the name Vera for your business. I'm just wondering because she loves the name Sinmi. You're on mute as well. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Hi, Ali. That's what I said. I think I've always felt quite comfortable authentically representing myself. I've never not shown my pictures because I don't know, I've always just felt like it was something I should and could do. The name Vera isn't my name. It means faith in Slovenian and Croatian.
I think we're having slight issues with the Wi-Fi there.
It's a massive part of my life, and I wanted to translate that through my business, so I can not only by myself to. Can you hear me?
I think we're having slight technical issues with your Wi-Fi.
Hello.
Maybe if I'll ask a question to Andi, and then we'll come back to you in a second if that's all right. I had one for Andi. Andi, there was somebody came in saying, can you give any examples of things that have been eye-opening or impactful for you in formal bias training?
Yeah, there was one example. So it's probably 10 years, maybe a little bit longer now since I did the bias training. But there was one exercise that I always remember stood out. And we were given I think we did it in groups, 2s or 3s, given pictures of a bunch of people and a list of job titles, and we had to match the people to the job titles. Fairly straightforward exercise. And then we discussed the results that everybody had gotten. You know, you have discussions, and what tends to happen is everybody kind of generally attributed, and I can't remember the exact pictures and job titles, but effectively you would get like a 50-year-old well-dressed white man, oh, that would be the businessman, and you would get, you know, sort of a black woman, oh, right, she must be secretary. You'd see someone of Chinese origin and go, oh, must run a fast food business, and that type of thing. Now, the answer was obviously you didn't know, there wasn't enough information from the pictures and the jobs to match any of them, and what you were doing was effectively just pushing your bias, discussing it with a group, and then sharing it with everybody else. And you sort of all sat there at the end of that going, oh dear Lord, yeah. And just a real shocking sort of moment where you just stop and you go, wow, all this is, you know, without trying to be overtly racist or nasty about anything, realizing that, oh, this is a huge problem for me that I need to check and I need to understand that I have. So that was one of the sort of eye-opening moments from that. There was lots of other things that sort of flushed it out, but that was probably the one.
Really interesting. Thanks, Andy. Simi, we'll try you again if we can hear you just one more time, see if that's any better. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
We can, yeah. The video is a bit delayed, but the sound should be good. We'll try the answer one more time, and if we have to jump in, please forgive us.
Okay, I basically just explained that I've always felt like I could represent myself. So I've never felt like I couldn't be my authentic self. I've always posted pictures of myself and shared who I was. And the name Vera actually means faith in Slovenian and Croatian. So it's not my personal name. I just thought it would be, well, it was important for me to include my faith in a way through my business. But I think it's something, like Deborah said, hiding yourself or feeling like you can't run your business authentically as you is something so common. So it was very refreshing hearing you say that, because it's testament to the results and research that I've done.
Great, thank you. We heard you perfectly then, so thank you very much. Just as a heads up, I know we're getting to 2 minutes to 12 now. I think all our panelists are happy to stay on for another 10 or 15 minutes or so we'll continue with the Q&As. If any attendees have to drop off and you've asked a question, we are recording this, and this session will be on our website next week, so we'll answer all these questions, and do please stick around if you can, but if you have to leave, please do look out for the link for the video next week. Okay, we had a question from Alan Heap. It's a question for anyone on the panel. He says, we're going to make a short promotional film next week, and we don't have any black members of staff in our company. I'm considering asking a local contact to appear in the film. Does this seem condescending to ask, or does this seem like a positive step? Yeah, it's a tricky question, that, but one I'm sure that needs to be answered. Simi, you have your hand up, and Andy as well. So yeah, please, maybe Simi first.
Without being offensive, it's time to hire some black people. I don't think black people are props. You can't just be like, oh, let's get like guy in for this video. Show your company as it is and just be committed to change in the future. So next time you film a video, you will be more inclusive and have members in your team that are actually members of your team.
Really good. Andy, anything to add?
Yeah, broadly the same, be authentic. I think the only thing I would add to that, and I know we talked about this a little bit before, I'm based in Northern Ireland, where the black population is less than 2%. It's somewhere between 1.5 and 2%. So I work with a number of companies where there are no other black people there. And that's not necessarily because there are hiring faults. It's just because the way the community is built in that place. So, but to go back to that is have a plan. Because just because you say we've only got a small black population isn't an excuse for not having black staff. Because your bias running through your processes may stop you from having more black staff. The only other thing I would say is, depending on how the video is going to be shot and what you're going to do, how can you increase the diverse profile of if you've got customers coming into the video and things like that. But yeah, just sort of let's grab somebody black to stand and make it look like they're part of the team is probably not the way I'd be looking at that. It wouldn't be authentic for the business.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. Thank you for the question as well. It's a really important question. Okay, one from Jill Green. First steps in overhauling your HR process, e.g. removing names in CV sift and addressing cultural toxicity. What would the panel choose to do first? Amelia, do you have any response to that at all?
So the question was about removing names from CVs.
In overhauling your HR process, what would be your first point of call in terms of how you hire people? Is it remove names in the CV? Is there anything else that could be done within that?
I think we've spoken a lot about unconscious bias training, which I think is quite useful and helpful in maybe removing some of those obstacles throughout the recruitment process.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned before that, for small business owners, they are juggling a lot of things. They tend not to have a HR person within the business who is leading on the recruitment. So recruitment in general is quite a tall order. So I think if they're able to access any of those kind of bias training and remove some of those things and make sure that they're aware of certain things, and maybe extend their types of recruitment practices. So whether they're just looking at putting a flyer in a window, maybe they could look at LinkedIn or social media and reach a wider target base, not just in terms of race, but age and gender as well. So those are some of the things that they could do.
Perfect. Andi, anything to add on that? Sorry.
Caught me by surprise.
I know, sorry.
I think it meant the question mentions about cultural toxicity, which it kind of I don't know if I'm overreading the question. It smacks the fact that there's maybe bigger organizational problems as well. But I think somebody said to me recently, said you can never do enough. And yes, you have to decide what you're going to do because you've only got so much bandwidth in the day. But I don't think it's an either or question. I think it's an and. We need to tackle this and this and put that plan in place to do it. Because I have no problem sometimes with companies putting their hands up and going, look, we're not doing this right. But, well, I do have a problem with that. We're not doing this right, so here's what we're going to do. I have no problem with that when companies say we're making mistakes at the moment, but here's how we're going to fix it. So I think saying this is what we're going to do and these are the steps we're going to place is that have that plan, be open about it, share it with everybody, and then work your way through it. Great,
really interesting. I think there's something coming from Orla McKeating as well. This is a long statement and a question, but I think it's an important statement to read out as well. So thank you so much for amazing information and advice. My mind is blown up on so many levels. Having worked in fashion-based Brussels and Paris until 2011, I'm so pleased with the stats as this was and is such an issue, especially hair and makeup, which was my area. So thank you, Deborah, for those. I'm currently founder of Still I Rise Diversity Storytelling for Kids. I also coach Black and ethnic minority women in personal and professional life. I'm a white woman and always trying to recruit our readers and artists for Still I Rise with lived experience in race and bias. I support and share Black business owners' experiences, especially women, and there is so much more I can still do. What more can we do as white allies to support Black men and women in business? I guess, Deborah, if we go to maybe you on that one, and you're on mute.
Sorry. I think for me, like, this is something that is, I'm in the last couple months, I've actually had a lot of non-Black people reach out and want to work with us. So this is an area that I'm already like looking at how to navigate properly. But it's like what we've been talking about, being authentic. I like to work with businesses and brands that are genuinely doing the work and wanting to, even it's like, for example, I can't remember the name of the platform, but what they did was they were a white female run business, and they actually allowed other Black female creators to take over their social media platforms and to talk about their businesses, giving them that platform to be visible, to be seen, but also being able to work in conjunction with each other in an authentic way. And it doesn't come across as like they're trying really hard. I mean, I recently helped a friend out with her business, her fashion brand, who wanted to be a part of the BLM movement, and they wanted to post a Black square. And I advised her against doing that for the company, because based on what the company's visuals were, they only had 3 people in the last 5 or 6 years that they had posted on their social media on their page. So it was kind of like, it doesn't look as if you are a part of, like, you want to work with Black, like, it's not something that you've been doing and is a part of your core business. So I think it always needs to be authentic, like we said, and it needs to be a partnership instead of something that is it's something that I want to do, but it's you need to do it for the long term, not for the short term. You need to go into these partnerships for the long term.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think leading on to that, actually, Aid Ebahon, or Eddie Ebahon, maybe, apologies if I got the pronunciation incorrect, has said, what is the one thing businesses can do to navigate this situation without falling victim to tokenism or treating it like a passing trend, embedding changes long term? And I think we spoke similarly about that in our initial conversations around tokenism. Maybe you want to speak to that question.
So that's a really good point, because tokenism has been like a buzzword recently that I'd discovered and done some research about. But I think, echoing what Deborah said, it's not about what can we do immediately, we have to start posting now. It's about, okay, what are our company values, like Andi said, and how can we implement this over the long term? So if that means, okay, we're going to increase our the number of Black people or people of colour working within our team by XYZ date, commit to that and actually allow these people to have opportunities. And when it comes to like being like the token Black person, I think it has its pros and its cons, but I think if you are in the position to be a token Black person, or if you're trying to hire someone, your first Black hire or something like that, it's kind of a responsibility to not let it just stop at that one, and to start including more and more people into this as possible, because it's so good to have one token Black person, but it can't stop there. So it's important for us to kind of, like we've been saying again and again, make plans for the future and see how your company's culture can change long term, not just what you can post on social media today, what could be part of our marketing campaign for the next 6 months. It's kind of like it needs to be embedded and engrossed in your company.
I think that's really important. Anybody else have anything to sort of mention on that? Deborah, Andi, there's another question that's come in as well. I think, well, this is something that we'll provide post event. Maybe Andi can help with this. Orla McKeating also said, could someone recommend some implicit bias training? I think maybe Andi, if you have something along those lines that we could share post event. She says there are so many options, but prefer on recommendation. Is that something that's available?
I was just the stuff I did was a long time ago. I had a full head of hair, I think, when I did the training. I believe. Let me see if I can dig something out. I think the NSPCC do some good stuff as well, so I'll check and send it to you for the distribution.
Perfect. So we'll get that sent out post event. Let me just see if there's any more questions that came in. One I saw. Sorry. So this is from Anonymous. If you want to recruit more BAME people to have a more balanced team, can you say that you want to do this? And maybe would you be seen excluding others or non-BAME potential members of staff? Is that something that you've either come across or have experienced in? Maybe Andi, maybe?
My own advice, because I'm not even remotely legal, I'm going to sort of repeat something I've said 2 or 3 times before. The likes of Federation of Small Businesses or Institute of Directors, the local chamber, I'm pretty certain all of them have got sort of human resources hotlines or legal teams you can tap into. And what I would say is I would get in touch with them. I see job applications in certain places with word, sort of written to say, we encourage applications from underrepresented communities and things like that. But I don't know enough about it from a legal standpoint to know what you can and can't say. But if you're a member of the Federation of Small Businesses or Institute of Directors, they have helplines where you can just pick the phone up or send them an email and they'll come back with some idea. I think that's right, Amelia, isn't it?
Yeah, Amelia, I'm sure you have some information on that.
Yeah, I definitely echo some of those points. For FSB, if you are a member, we have a 24/7 employment helpline. So if there are any kind of human resources queries that you're battling with and you're not sure, you can go to that helpline. But I think one key thing is businesses should embrace diversity. So you could be a Black male who's disabled and gay. All of those things are important to your identity. They're all, encompass the diverse umbrella. So if businesses are wanting to recruit and grow their teams, they should be looking at all aspects of someone's characteristics, whether that be race, gender, disability, sexual orientation. So all of those things are important, and businesses should embrace to kind of, employ as many people covering that whole diverse umbrella.
Great. Thanks to me. It's great to know those resources are there. So yeah, we've got time for, well, we're obviously at 10:12 now. There's still people here, which is great. So if it's okay with the panelists, there's a couple more questions, I think. So there's one from Kimberly. What advice would you give for a Black woman starting a business in a white and/or male-dominated sector? Kimberly, maybe if you could tell us what sector that is, that would be helpful. But maybe Sinmi, you have any idea around that one? I know.
I spoke about this actually yesterday. I done a live video chat with a fellow lash artist, and because the beauty industry is predominantly white, it's kind of like sometimes you feel like you can't conform to an industry that is not welcoming or receptive of you. But I think it's important to keep showing up and doing your best work, because like Michelle Obama said, you can't afford to wait till you're seen. Basically, you have to kind of position yourself in the best way, so when you are seen and those opportunities do arise, you're your best self. It is difficult. Like, I'd be lying if I said it was easy. It's very challenging, and you're gonna like face moments where you're like, why am I doing this? Why do I keep putting myself in this position? This industry is never going to accept me. But I promise you, you just need to carry on being your authentic self and just keep pushing, keep networking, keep trying to just show up as your best self and pray that things are going to get better. And because the thing is that so much change is happening now. And I strongly believe that the world is never going to be the same after this civil rights movement. So there's never been a better time, in my opinion, to be Black and to show that you're Black and to just show up as you.
Really important. Thanks, Sinmi. That's really. Can we say it's the web industry? But I would think that what you said applies across your industry and the web industry as well. Deborah, did you have anything you wanted to add on that point at all?
No, I think she said it all.
Okay, great. Was there one more question I saw? Sorry, bear with me. No, I think we've got one more just come in here. Let me just have a quick look. Dave, we covered that a bit earlier, so maybe just if you watch the video back. I'm aware now we're getting up to 12:15, so I think we'll call an end to it there. If there are any questions that we haven't managed to cover, apologies, but I will take them offline and speak to the panel. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to the panel, all taking their time out today. It's been a really important and interesting discussion, so thank you all very much indeed for your time. And I hope that the attendees have got as much out of it as I have. It's been really interesting, so thank you once again. A reminder to the attendees that who are non-members, they'll be receiving an email on Tuesday next week about how to become a Tide member, and we look forward to welcoming you on board. But for now, we'll say goodbye and thank you for attending, and we hope to see you again at another webinar soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.